Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I'm still a medical doctor, simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Todd Stark. Todd is a voiceover actor who is a fellow pandemic second act actor. The pandemic hit, and we reevaluated everything in our lives, didn't we? Well, Todd and I did. Todd had a very successful corporate career in marketing, IT strategy, global something. I'm sorry, Todd. I don't know what corporate careers are. I usually have to Google what all of these things mean in the corporate world. I went to medical school, not business school. I'm sorry. But now he is a full-time voice actor, and you know how much I adore listening to voice actors. One, of course, their voices are amazing to listen to. But two, their stories are incredible because voiceover actors have the most amazing imaginations on the planet. They have to be in little booths, probably in their homes, and have to imagine these worlds that they're placed in. They have to imagine people that they're talking to. They don't have a fellow actor across from them. Their imaginations are just the best. And Todd is no different. Please enjoy the incredibly talented and lovely Todd Stark. Tell me your story. How did you get into this crazy business?
Well, first of all, thanks for acknowledging that it is a crazy business. So I suppose, like a lot of people, the pandemic was the seminal moment in my life when I said I had to do something else. In my case, though, I had pretty much had a full career in the corporate world before that. Yes, I know I look like I'm a young lad. Of course I do, but of course I'm not. But I had a sort of a full international corporate career in global supply chain. And I also did work in marketing and sales and IT and strategy and other stuff in 6 different industry verticals. And I suppose I either did that because I was really interested in career advancement, or I was just so ADHD I couldn't stand doing the same thing for very long. Either way, the result was the same, is that the pandemic comes along, and I knew it was time for me to get out. And in fact, the company I was working for at the time, great organization, great people, but not a good cultural fit. Mm. And for a whole lot of my life, I'd had this sort of both, left brain, right brain argument going on with myself, right? And the logical side, because of my career, always took over. And I wasn't doing things that were really that much fun necessarily. And so during the pandemic, I said, I'm going to just get out and I'm going to go do something else. So I literally took some time off and did nothing. But I did something really kind of interesting. I had done some strategy work with companies, large and small, all around the world, and spent some time having them think about sort of their raison d'être, right? Their sort of reason to be and their strategies. And I said, you know what, Stark, maybe you ought to take a look in the mirror and do this for yourself. So I took my own business model and I used it on myself to say, what do I want to be when I grow up? And what came out of that is, I want to be an actor. And I hadn't been an actor since high school. I was in West Side Story in high school. I was in Bell Kaufman's Up the Down Staircase. I did stuff like that. And I loved it. And then, of course, the business bug got a hold of me, and then that was that. So I'm just sort of going back to my roots, and that's how I got to where I am today.
Now, when you were younger, I mean, a lot of us were these theater kids in high school because it was available to us, right?
Right.
Were you ever thinking, oh, I could do this professionally? This is something I can make a career out of?
At that time, no, I did not think that. I didn't exactly have anybody I could bounce that off of. I had a really great drama teacher, and he was very inspirational to me and helpful and stuff. In fact, we're still on Facebook. But it never occurred to me, maybe I should go to Tisch or something and then become an actor. I'll tell you what did occur to me. I was interested in not the in front of the camera stuff. I was interested in the behind the camera stuff. So if I had lived in, say, Southern California as a kid, I might have maybe gone to the UCLA Film School and it ended up being a Steadicam operator or something like that. That would have been cool for me. But it was just a fantasy. I didn't pursue it, whatever. And it wasn't until I was, again, much older that I said, this is really what I'm supposed to be doing. You know what, Janet, I haven't been an actor for 35 years, right? So I don't claim to be a good actor, but this is what I am supposed to be doing. This is really what I love to do, and I love the struggle of it every day.
What do you love about it?
Okay, what do I love about it? I love several things about it. First of all, I love the fact that every day you get up and you look yourself in the mirror and you say, what can I accomplish today
Hmm.
that's going to be new and different and push me and challenge me?
Hmm.
Right? As opposed to getting up every day and saying, it's just another day and I've got to figure out this P&L issue, or I've got to take these various organizations and have them turn left and turn right. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's fine. But for me, I need to get up every day and feel like I have to really accomplish something that makes me feel good. And the thing about acting, and by the way, I've been a voice actor, but I've also am now aspiring to be an on-screen actor as well. So I'm doing some work in that area as well. But what I realize is that every time you look at a script, every time you look yourself in the mirror and say, how do I take an imaginary situation and portray it in a way which is real and authentic and brings my own heart into the script? Wow, that just blows me away. And it blows me away in ways that none of my other work has ever done.
Now, your work in the corporate world, I mean, working in the corporate world, that's like a big umbrella term. But with your work that you did, do you find anything that you did helpful for your job now as an actor? Have you brought anything in from your first career?
Oh, yeah, I have. I think I have brought things in from my first career. One of them is just the business element of it, right? Because as we know, no matter what we do, whether it's films, television, stage, voice, whatever you do, it's show business, which is the business of show, right? So you can't just go in and say, today I'm method acting my way through the world, and then when the bills come in, I'll just deal with it. No, it doesn't actually work that way, because you have to actually account for what you're doing, and you have to acquire and retain clients, and you have to understand marketing, and you have to understand customer relationship management, and you have to understand your finances and that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff is pretty intuitive for me. Yes, it's a different application, but I had already worked in all kinds of industry verticals as diverse as consumer packaged goods and industrials and coffee and telephony and renewable energy. And I'd done these in 100 countries around the world. So I was comfortable with the ambiguity of that. So this is just another application of it. But the other side of this, the non-business side of that's the side that is most challenging for me, but also feels fairly, I don't know. As I said before, it feels like where I'm supposed to be.
That's really cool. That's a really cool feeling. Now, how did you learn what to do to build your career? I mean, like, the weird thing about the industry, as you know, is that there isn't really, sure, you can go to film school, you can go to theater school, but there isn't really like a certificate you can hang on the wall that's like, congratulations, you passed your actor test and now you can do this. Like, how did you learn the business side of acting, or even the art side of acting?
Well, I wish I could say I've learned it and every day I'm just killing it. I mean, I've never felt more happy and satisfied in my career. I've also never felt as insecure as I do. I've never felt this level of vulnerability, right? Because in the business world, you don't do that. You go into these meetings and you always feel like you're supposed to be, you know, this, I can't do that in this world. I have to try to learn it. And so every day I'm learning something that I did not know the day before. In fact, I actually say that to myself every morning. I say, what am I going to do today that would not happen in my absence? And so I've had to learn it the hard way, I suppose. Maybe everybody learns it this way. I only know what I know. But before I did this, I spent a lot of time online. I spent a lot of time reading stuff. I spent a lot of time watching stuff. I spent a lot of time trying to study things and understand what it is I was going to need to study, right? Um, from an acting standpoint and from a technology standpoint and from a business standpoint. How could I take the business experience and technical mastery that I had and reapply that to this industry? And I wrote out a ton of stuff. I use one of these remarkable tablets, and I got billions of pages of digital notes here. And on the other side of my studio, way over there, I've got this giant whiteboard. And sometimes I get out all the markers and I get out there and I draw stuff out and try to figure out what I'm doing and where I'm going and what must be true for me to either do this kind of work or get this kind of role. And I just walk my way through it um, to see if I can come up with the answers. And of course, the thing is, as well, you know, so as a physician, you probably spend a lot of time with other people. And so if you have idea, you can bounce things off your colleagues and whatever. But as an actor, you know that sometimes the only person you can bounce someone off of is yourself. And that's a beautiful thing, and it's also a dangerous thing because you can find yourself in an echo chamber, believing your own shtick. And I try really hard not to do that because I'm as full of it as anybody else, and I know that sometimes I have to try to get out of that. But I tried to just walk my way through my own process to figure out, what do I need to learn? These are the things I need to learn about the business. These are the things I need to learn about the associated technology, particularly for voice. And these are the things I need to learn about acting. And that part of it is going to be a lifelong lesson. I'll always be a student. I'll never be a sensei.
Now, since delving into this encouraging business, as we said, has there been anything that's been surprising to you that you didn't expect?
Yeah, yes, there has. I don't know if I should have been surprised by this, but I guess I was. And I'm almost going to contradict myself when I say this. Acting is really, really hard. It is also ridiculously easy. And here's what that means to me. The hard part is I watch people act. You go to the theater and you watch someone act. Or you watch a movie and you watch somebody act. And if you don't like the performance, then you start to question things. Is it a crappy script? Is it not a role that's suitable for them? Are they not digging deep enough? Are they being inappropriate for the role? Is the cinematography whatever? Something might not be right. But I find myself wondering about that all the time. And then when you find yourself in a position where you've got to do take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4, take 5, take 6, take 7, it's hard to redo those same things over and over again and bring more to it. Here's an example. I was recently at an actors intensive in Los Angeles. It's the Studio for Performing Arts Actors Boot Camp. The director of the facility is a guy named Walid Chaya. Super great guy, good director. He's got a good sense. And I was doing a scene, which ultimately I also did for a video reel. But I was doing a scene as an assassin who was sitting in his therapist's office, evolving from this position of sort of flippant detachment to actual vulnerability.
Mm.
And I had done this scene on camera before. I had done it with other actors before and whatever. And when I got to this workshop, several day workshop, the first time I did it, and there were lots of casting directors there from Hollywood and whatnot, all renowned people in their own way. The first casting director looked at it, and he looked at me and he said, it was pretty good. You know what you're doing, pretty smooth, but felt a little performative. And I thought, oh man, put a stake through my heart. That's like the worst thing you can say to an actor is it sounds like Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1. Kill me now, okay? It was also some of the best notes he could have given me because I went away and I thought about it and I tried to embrace it without getting overly Chekhov-y about it. And the next day, I had to do it for other casting directors. And when I get to the point in the scene, and there's an audience, and there's the casting directors, everything. I'm my reader with me, and I get to the point in the scene where I really got to become vulnerable, and I started to cry. And the reader starts to cry, and everybody in the audience starts to cry. And I didn't intend for that to happen. I just really felt it. And I went, oh, shoot, that's what this is really all about. But what was interesting about it is I didn't say to myself, yeah, watch me now. I'm going to cry on cue. It just felt natural. And I wasn't trying to be a method actor, and I wasn't trying to draw out some old experience from 25 years ago. It just felt real. So good news, bad news. The good news is I did it really well. And the casting directors were like, Jesus, that's great. We put that on a series right now. The bad news is then you can't walk away and say, yeah, I just got to do that over and over and over again because I can't do it. I'm sure there are people who can. I'm not good enough to do that. So long answer to your question, long diatribe, but it's really hard because when you finally bring it and you finally feel it, you don't just get to do it once. You got to be able to do it again. And that's part of my journey right now as an actor is how to make this easy every time.
It's so tricky. And that's like the understatement of the year, right? Because I think hopefully all actors have felt that feeling, that being in the zone, you don't really remember what happened. I don't remember what I actually said. I don't remember any of the lines.
Yeah.
You were just there. You were in it. And then you come out of it being like, huh?
Oh,
That's the addiction. That's like crack. That's like, I want that again. Give it to me again. But again, that's not sustainable, as we know. But how do we make it that? Because that's your job.
That's it exactly. How do you do that? Because that's your job. And that's where this idea that acting is reacting is really important in my mind, because you can't sit across from another actor and say to yourself, okay, now it's Janet's line, and Janet is going to say da, 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 and then I'm going to say da, 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 and then she's going to say da, 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 and then I'm going to say da, da, da. You can't do that. I need to simply, if you're in the scene with me, I simply need to listen to what you say, see how that makes me feel, and then react. And if my reaction, and if I do a good job, I'm just reacting. I'm just being me. I can't be anybody else, and I can't fake it. I just have to be me and give it everything I can. And that is most likely to be the best performance that I know how to give, at least at this stage. So I always, when I have to redo things like that, I don't think about acting. I think about reacting.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice then for people? I mean, advice for that for sure, but like kind of expanding it into more, that's something that I think humans in general struggle with listening. Of course, we are very selfish. But I think especially when we're coming into this career trying to learn how to do that after living lives, like, do you have any advice for people looking to get into this and trying to be successful in that listening piece?
Oh boy.
Mhm.
Well, you just said it. It starts with this this recognition, this acknowledgement that we are generally pretty selfish.
Hmm.
I mean, as humans, we tend to do that, right? We tend to think of the world as like concentric circles. This is my world, or this is my world, and this is our world, and then way out here is the world. And we tend to not give a flying flip about what happens out here, and the closer it gets to us, the more we tend to care.
Mhm.
But unless you're doing a monologue or you're a one person show on Broadway, you can't really do that. You've got to be a good listener. Actually, I'll contradict myself again. Even a one person show on Broadway, right? You're still working with the audience.
Hmm.
You're
Mhm.
still responding to the audience. And if it's improv, you're still responding to the audience or shifting and adjusting. And so the advice, the best advice I guess I could give is probably figure out how to get out of your own way. I got this advice too as a voice actor, right? Because I'm a full-time voice actor before I ever got into on-screen stuff, and it's going well. I'm enjoying it and making a living at it. But one of my coaches, a really wonderful human being and very, very talented agent and coach in Boston named Lala Lapidus, she gave me really good advice. One time she said, "Stop falling in love with your voice." She said, "You are in love with your voice, and sometimes it interferes with your performance."
Hmm.
And I thought, "Oh, that's really interesting." And I mean, my voice is I've always this is the way I've always talked. This is just the way I've always talked, for better and for worse. But that advice has helped shape me to get out of my own way and just focus on what does the script call for? What does the performance call for? And not focus on me or focus on my voice or even step outside myself and say, look at me doing a great job. Cause then I'm not doing a great job.
Hmm.
So that's not a great answer, Janet, but it really helps if you're going to be in this kind of profession. You got to get out of your own way and just let your emotions and the guided by the script, not necessarily dictated by it, but guided by it, be your guide to what good performance looks like. And that's as true for voice, I think, as it is for screen.
Mm. Something that I really love when I talk to voiceover actors, it's not a world I'm super familiar with, is like, tell me about your imagination. Because to me, voiceover actors have to have incredible imaginations. You have nothing to go off of except for a booth, and you have to pretend like you're on like Mordor and like crazy bullets being shot at you in different directions. How and because everyone I talk to is like, yeah, everyone thinks voiceover is really easy. You just read the lines, the end. Like, but there's no connection to an audience. But like, how do you build that? Is your imagination insane?
That's a really good question, and it's a really interesting one. And anybody who says, actually, somebody just said this to me the other day. They said, voice acting, why don't you say just like read the lines or
You just
um,
talk.
there's an advertisement that I sometimes see on the web that'll say, um, read scripts for business and make a middle class income. It's like, no, that doesn't work. Uh, it's really, really hard. And part of it is because of what you said. If you and I are in an acting scene, I can look you in the eye and I can riff off of you and you can riff off of me and we build an energy. And if the energy is authentic, it creates a good scene. When I'm in the booth, right? So this is sort of my studio area. The booth is over there. When I'm in the booth, um, I do have to really try to imagine things. And so there are some things I do that are helpful to me because I do commercials. I do some forms of narration. I do a little bit of e-learning. I've done some animation. I've done some video games. I've done some promo. I really like almost all of it, except audiobooks. I only did one audiobook, and I just decided it's not really my jam. Um, I'm more of a sprinter than I am a marathoner, I guess. But you really do have to have a good imagination. Now, some people will have tricks. They'll say, like, I put a picture of somebody in the booth, and I'm talking to them. I don't do that. Whatever your process is whatever your process is, and that's fine. For me, particularly if it's a big audition from one of my agents or my manager or somebody like that, I read it again, and try the second time through. The first time I'm just reading it for mechanics. Am I going to trip over this word? The word is tetrachlorodibenzoparadioxin. Crap. And you gotta, you work your way through it and you do all your mouth exercises. Once you get through that, then you read it. My process is I read it again and I go, what am I really trying to say? And I ask myself all those questions. Who am I? Where am I? To whom am I speaking? Am I inside, outside? Is my voice quiet? Is my voice loud? Am I really up here, like having this light thing, like it's a poppy soda ad, or am I down here like I'm in Mordor? There's all these differences. You have to think about all that and then figure out how to breathe life into the script and pull the words off the page. Which is to say that just like when you memorize a scene, you wouldn't go into a thing where you got a big red camera right in your face and you're like reading your lines. You shouldn't do that in the booth either, because then you're reading lines and that makes you a lousy actor. You have to be able to get off the page. Also great advice that came from Mark Cashman. I didn't make that up, but the great LA-based coach Mark Cashman gave me that one. And if you can get off the page, you can tend to be yourself. But you have to really be in the moment. And that is all in your imagination. If you have a lousy imagination, I don't know. You'd have a hard time getting much work unless you're trying to recite lines from a 1965 World Book Encyclopedia.
Do you have any favorite moments from your time either on set, on stage, or in the booth?
Oh my God. I have so many. It's amazing to me. No one's ever asked me that question, but I have so many favorite moments. And some of them are just, I love directed sessions, right? I love being in the booth and you're online with the studio somewhere else. Being in studio is even better, right? When you're in studio and here's the engineer on the other side of the glass and there's a director and maybe that's really fun, but that's really rare today. Every once in a while, like sometimes I audition for stuff and they'll say, you got to be in studio to do. And I always say, I'll be there. If it's a big spot and it's worth if it's financially appropriate, I'll be there. I don't care where it is. I don't care if it's in New York or London or LA, I'll be there. But for a lot of spots these days, Source Connect is one of the primary ways, along with there are some other similar technologies, as I'm sure you know. But to be able to be online, just as you and I are now, but maybe there's 2 or 3 or 5 people online at the same time, and one of their engineers on their end. So I'm recording into my DAW, my digital audio workstation, and they are also recording with their engineer. And so that's really the greatest way to do it. And sometimes those sessions can be really fun and stuff. Funny stuff can happen. I had a session about, I don't know, 3-4 months ago. It was a series of online directed sessions. And there was an engineer who, in the same room with him, were 3 or 4 other people. And then there was another piece of the studio online in another part of the country. And there was me. And the engineer had the mic. on his end. So if one of the producers or whatever would say, "Hey, Todd, that was good, but I want you to taffy this line out a little bit, right? I want you to take a breath right here, or I want you to speed this up on this next take," whatever. But the engineer was the one with basically the talkback switch. So he had to. So we're about 3/4 of the way through the session. And for whatever reason, I guess he decided this is being recorded, isn't it?
Yes.
I guess he decided that last night's tacos were, worth participating in again. And so here's this guy, big guy, sitting there. He's got the mic. I don't think he realized it was a hot mic. And he kind of leans over to one side and gives it a really impressive one cheek sneak. Only it's not a one cheek sneak. Been to a zoo, right? You go to a zoo. You know what happens when an elephant eats a 35-pound box of broccoli? Okay, so this is what happens on a hot mic.
Oh my
So
God.
that means that now two things are happening. Number one, the people on their end, they're all like, "Brad, oh hell, what's wrong with you? Oh man, you gotta, it's time for a break." And then there's me on the other end. So I'm laughing my head off and I'm like, so what am I going to do? Right. So I don't know what I said to him. I said something like, "Brad, I think you clipped at 0 dB. So we're going to have to redo that take again. And, and this time lean a little farther away from the mic before you do that. Cause anyway, they thought it was funny. I thought it was funny, but those are the kinds of things that happen because it's real life. And that's one of the things I love about this job. It's real life with real people and real issues that I just didn't see as often in my past lives.
That is amazing. Do you have anything you are looking forward to coming up?
Ooh, boy. Yes, I do. I have a couple of commercial spots that I'm going to be doing. I really like, sometimes commercials are fun to do and they can be financially attractive. I did one, I don't know. I did a commercial, North American commercial, US and Canada. You're in Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good. I love you Canadians. I'm just saying, okay. Just saying, congratulations on the election. And
Thank you.
yeah. But I did a North American campaign for a company. I'm hoping to do another one for them in the fairly near future. I've got some other stuff I'm doing. I just did an animation spot. This is May. I am a promo announcer for the LPGA for a particular event, the Mizuho Americas Bank Open. It's coming out in a couple weeks or whatever. So anyway, doing some promo announcing for that, and I love doing that. And on the film end, my agent has submitted me. I've submitted auditions for a couple of really big spots, one for Microsoft and one for Delta, and one for a men's care product overseas. And I'm hoping maybe one of those comes to pass. We'll see. I love the mixture of both the on-camera and mic stuff. They're both so exciting to me.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, because now I have met two of your, I was about to call you compatriots, colleagues,
Yeah.
Serge and Anne. But yes, tell me what you all have created together.
Oh boy. Well, I can't take credit for creating it. I was not one of the original founders. Both Serge and Anne were, along with a couple of other equally brilliant voice actors. And then after they got a group of about, I don't know, there were about the 4 or 5 original ones, and then they built out just a few more. And then Anne called me And I think there were about maybe 9 or 10 people at that point, not very many. And she asked me, she said, "I'd love you to be a part of this." And I said, yes. I mean, not only because I love Anne, but because, and I love Serge too, man. Those guys, everybody in this group is so great. But because the mission is very important to me. I mean, when I was 25 years into my career, I left the Fortune 100 world, Fortune 500. I'd been at 2 companies at that point, to go into the nonprofit world. And I worked in the global nonprofit sector all around the world for many years after that, because the idea of social, economic, and environmental justice are core to what I believe. So, when Anne came along and said, "Hey, we have this thing, it's called Voiceover for the Planet," and she told me about it, I said, "Oh, I'm in." And she said, "Well, there's some things you got to do, and and I said, "I don't care. I don't care. Whatever it is, I'm in, because it's the right thing to do, and not enough of it's getting done in the world." And of course, now in the world we live in now, where we're trying really hard to obliterate much of the environmental work that's been done, what the group does is more important than ever. So that's how I originally got hooked up with them, and we had a chance to spend some time together in 2024. Again, as I said, we'll do it again in 2025. But the beauty of that work is that for companies who do have some kind of a mission base, they could be a small company, they could be a small 501c3, or they could be a big company that just happens to take their mission seriously and not just be about total shareholder return. For the Planet provides an opportunity to give voice, I guess, give voice to those efforts through what we do. And as Anne has, I'm sure, told you, and Serge has told you, the model has evolved, and the buy one get one model to try to provide wonderful voiceovers, sometimes for companies that would otherwise not be able to do it at all. Mm. And so there's this whole range of companies now that have been attracted to what we do. And now the group is a lot larger. I don't exactly know how many. Maybe Anne said the other day, I'm sure it's probably 30 something, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Like
and
said, yeah.
The thing is, when I joined, it's like, so I was like the only old guy. So that's fine if they happen to want my old guy voice, but what if they don't? What if they want a different old guy voice, or they want an older voice of a woman, or they want more of a non-binary voice? Whatever they want, we have to be able to provide that. So one of the beauties about growing the business now, growing the actor base rather, is that now if they say, I want a young girl, I want a girl who's 10 years old, or I want a guy who's an old guy like me, or they want a middle-aged person with a particular sound. The group's getting big enough now that there are very few niches that we can't probably meet. And I'm very proud of the group. I'm very proud of what the group has done. And it also provides a real sense of community, which is tough. I think that's one of the reasons Anne was probably one of the brainchilds of it, was to start in the first place, was not only is it good for the world, but also it's community. And as a voice actor, the digital screen is about as close as we get sometimes. So it's really a great thing.
That's wonderful. And I'll put the link in the show notes below for everybody to take a look at.
Great.
And yeah, it's just wonderful.
Great.
Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
Final words of wisdom or advice? Geez. Well, I guess the one thing I would say is, if somebody is going to become any kind of actor, stage, screen, voice, whatever, it helps if you have some kind of financial backing to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had a whole career, and I'm a sole breadwinner, but I'd worked for a long time, so I had something to fall back on. Even though when I got started in voiceover, the amount of money I made in those early days was $0, right? So it helps to have something to you kind of fall back on and give you more leverage. The other thing I would say is no matter what kind of acting you're in, you ought to study acting. It don't just think, I mean, I was a high school actor. What the heck does that mean? Go out and actually do it, whether it's whatever style it is, Adler, Stanislavski, Meisner, Chekhov, Strasberg, whatever it is, go study some school of acting so that you understand something about what you're doing. You may vary from that. You may deviate from that, but you have to be able to do that. Improv is great too. Learning to improv is one of the greatest ways to learn the flexibility, agility, and adaptability that you need to be a good actor. Be flexible, right? Have guts, be persistent. This is a tough job. You don't get up every day and say, well, I don't feel great today, but at least I'll get my paycheck. No, you wake up every day unemployed. So you got, that's hard. You've got to be able to deal with that. And of course, just know thyself. Be honest with yourself. I mean, 7 sages of Greece, like 5th century CE, right? You don't have to be overly philosophical about it, but know who you are as a person and know what you really bring to the work, either behind the mic or in front of the camera. And if you can do all of those things and you stick with it, I think you'll be successful. I read that I think John Hamm went to Hollywood. He got an agent pretty quickly, but they fired him after 3 years because he hadn't gotten work. John Hamm, he hadn't had a job for 3 years. But if most of us would say, well, if I could do it unemployed for 3 years and then, then make 7 or 8 figures every movie, okay, I'd probably do that. But he's the exception, and that's because guys like him and women like him are hardworking. They're not messing around. You got to be persistent.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And thank you, Todd, for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share your incredible story with me and with my listeners. Thank you for all the amazing voiceover tips. Just a fantastic, fantastic conversation. I hope you all will tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye.